Hello and welcome to this mini episode of the UCAS International Podcast. And in this episode today, we are going to be talking about how you can help someone that you know when they come to researching university or college in the UK. My name is Robbie James, and joining me on today's podcast, we have Emily Ferris from University of Cambridge, Regional Manager covering Europe and International, and also Laura Conaway from SOAS, Senior International Recruitment Manager. It is nice to see you both. Welcome along to the UCAS International Podcast. Let's start a little bit then with when we encourage students to start thinking about researching UK universities or colleges. Maybe we'll start with you, Emily. When would you advise people to start thinking about that part of your journey?
Sure. So the first thing I would say is to think about the deadlines of the course or the university that the person you're supporting might be considering, because there is, of course, the earlier deadline for medicine courses and Oxford and Cambridge, October 15th. Mm-hmm. So students will really be wanting to prepare an application a year in advance, if not a year and a half in advance, so they can build up all of the material that they need for those kinds of applications.
Would you go along with that, Laura?
Yeah, and I think just generally it's never too early, short of the hard and fixed deadlines, particularly for selective courses. I think there's a lot that you can do to start exploring subject interest, courses, really encouraging the person that you're supporting to make the most of connections or relationships that they might have to find out more about subjects, career paths, and really tie that in at an early stage as they set off exploring.
And as you mentioned, this is these little mini podcasts are all about how you can help if you are a parent, a guardian, maybe a friend or family member, whoever you might be, how you can support someone who is thinking about studying in the UK. How important are those people, the parents, the guardians, the friends, the family members, in trying to help them, help these students, whoever it might be, in their journey to the UK? How important to have that support network?
Oh, so important. I think especially for younger years, if you have someone in maybe grade 9 or grade 10, even if they're not kind of doing entrance exam preparation, start having conversations at home about what interests them. So they can start to think about what subject choices they might want to make. So they can kind of rest assured that they're on the right pathway. They can practice talking about their subject, really figuring out that what they're going to study at university is right for them. It's only going to be them studying it for 3 or 4 years. So get them thinking early about what genuinely interests them, even if it's just an informal conversation over dinner.
Is there also a fine balance between what maybe is of interest, but also what you're good at? Because they may not necessarily, Laura, go hand in hand, what you're good at or what your grades suggest that you're doing well at and what interests you.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely a place for balance in all that. I think generally speaking, you will excel at what you are interested in, what you're passionate about, and where you're genuinely enthusiastic. And I think absolutely, if you're thinking about an applied career path, there's lots that you can take into account to make sure that your degree will equip you for what you want to do in the future. But generally, UK degrees for lots of the major career paths, it's more important that you study something that you love and that you will achieve well in. And, there's lots of challenges about university in the UK. It's incredibly well respected, but it is a rigorous journey. There's lots of academic demands, and it's important to be mindful of that. When the going gets tough, you want to think, I'm actually genuinely passionate about what I'm studying and the degree and the university environment that I've chosen.
And would we also say, if you are trying to support someone who's thinking of coming to study in the UK, would you advise people to actually do the research about the courses and the universities and then come up with an opinion to give to that person? Or would you say, no, actually, just find the places that they can go and research and then tell them where to go? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a really good idea to do it together if you can. Mm-hmm. Then the person you're supporting isn't trying to relay messages sort of back and forth from what they've found online. As a parent or supporter, you yourself might have your own priorities of things that you want to research. So looking at it alongside your student can be really helpful, because you'll be looking at the same information and the same resources, but pulling different things out from it, especially if they are a bit younger. They might not be considering some things just yet, like the type of accommodation or student services. They're things that parents and supporters want to look at as well and get your student thinking about.
Do you agree with that, Laura?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also a question of balance. This word balance keeps coming up. But if you think about the UK university system, it really encourages independence, independent thinkers, independent learners. And I think in that respect, you need to give the person that you're supporting the freedom to explore and really encourage them to take all these factors into account. You can signpost platforms, you can encourage them to engage with the resources that they have within their school. But ultimately, this is a huge personal decision. But by the same token, we know that as parents and as families based out with the UK considering an education here, that it's a huge investment and that parents and those supporting young people will also have very legitimate concerns and limitations or budgets or whatever it may be. And so that does require partnership, working together and researching these things as a unit.
I'm going to pick up the word balance again there, because a term that we maybe like in the UK, we've heard the term pushy parents before a little bit, where you are maybe literally forcing your son or daughter to do what you want. So it is a fine balance because, you love these people who you're supporting, you want the best for them. So there is a balance between giving them your opinion, saying, I think this might be a good idea, have you considered this, but also leaving them to their own devices. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And as we've kind of mentioned, they're the ones who will be possibly moving really far away to go and live somewhere to study at university. So it's got to be somewhere that they feel comfortable, that is the right course for them, the right teaching style for them. And I think it's really good for parents and supporters to have an awareness of what those different options are. But ultimately it is their decision. Also trusting schools. Schools will give their students a lot of resources to go and research and look at, and just trust that those schools are signposting them to the most worthwhile and valuable places. Let them explore that, and then if they have any questions, maybe do it together.
What are those places then, Laura? Where would you advise people to go and do their research?
Gosh, I think there's so much and so many resources. Lots of schools now will partner with third-party platforms that are designed to give them information in a really accessible way. They'll sort of help them list and rank universities. They'll pick out different strengths. They'll point to subjects. Emily mentioned counsellor support within schools. Those counsellors, they are so well equipped, they are so wise, they often have direct linkages to those universities and are able to get very current information, guidance about specific issues that are perhaps a little bit more niche. If the person that you're supporting has had a bit more of an irregular, disrupted education journey, if you've been moving about internationally, for example, that's something that we see quite often. And I think also as a parent or someone supporting a student to apply to university, you will often have people within your networks who do really interesting jobs who themselves have experience of university in the UK. And often those personal experiences, those anecdotal stories are so valuable in making that experience feel real and tangible and helping them understand personal examples and things that they might not find written down.
Yeah, it's good. It's that old saying of, it's who you know, not what you know, isn't it? And that's a good point. Like if you have someone who's, maybe worked in a certain industry, putting them in touch, and they're the kind of things, I suppose, that maybe you wouldn't get as much from the actual university or college themselves, those personal connections and word of mouth. Is there anywhere else that you would add to the list, Emily, of places that you should go and make sure you're researching?
I would add maybe places on individual university websites that might not first appear as research. For example, you can often speak to a current student at a certain university on kind of a live chat platform. I think the word research might seem quite intimidating, but all of this exploratory work counts as research. So it's okay if the person you're supporting says that's the kind of research they've been doing into their chosen universities. It all helps build a picture of where they might want to go. Even social media can really, really help with decision making and help young people decide where the best place is for them. This all counts as research, I would say.
When you mention socials there, is that like from a student's point of view? Is that what you mean? Like getting reviews from students or league tables? Anything in particular?
Yes, and I think a lot of universities are really doing some great student-led social media work at the moment, like a day in the life of a student, or here's how I prepare for my lecture, or here's what my accommodation is like. Maybe that doesn't seem as kind of deep research if you're a parent or supporter. You might be thinking, is that really that helpful? But that student-led content to kind of peer-to-peer research can be so useful and so informative. And as Laura said, not necessarily information that you might see written down on the main university website, but it still gives you a really good insight into where you might want to go and study.
Real first-hand views,
exactly.
aren't they? What techniques can we use, Laura, to try and express our thoughts, feelings and emotions to someone we're supporting in terms of potentially studying in the UK? What advice would you give to people in terms of how they're communicating themselves?
I think it's just important to be open and honest right from the get-go, and also to go back to that word of balance, to actually recognise... It's our
favourite word. We're going to call this the UCAS Balance Podcast. That's what we'll go for.
I think it's probably most important in the context of these conversations, and particularly the relationships that you have with the young people that you're supporting. And it's often important to recognise where it's maybe your opinion or your ambition that you're projecting onto that person. We do see that sometimes, and you can tell that actually this student, they don't want to study this subject that you're having conversations about, that they would thrive and be much happier in perhaps a different university physical environment. And so I think it's creating spaces for open and honest discussion, but also being receptive to the feedback from the person that you are supporting, and just providing a really helpful framework for them to explore freely is probably what I would say there.
Anything else to add, Laura? Emily?
Sending your child off to university is anxiety-inducing for some people. It's really nerve-wracking, and the process
it's a huge thing.
Exactly.
Going away for however many years.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if it's somewhere that maybe you've never been before, and your person at home has said, "Oh, I'm moving to wherever." But have those open and honest conversations that it can be stressful. It is maybe a bit anxious for everyone involved, but also encourage them if that's what they really want to do. Some research might involve or really need parent support, such as taking them to an open day if it's overseas. But if we're talking, about money or booking flights and things, and if you can, and if you do have the means to, then facilitating research in that way as well, so everyone involved can actually see places in person, really get a feel for the environments, meet people like Laura and I, which should hopefully put minds at ease.
They will put minds at ease. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. You put minds very much at ease. It's good.
When you can actually see people working at the universities and students kind of milling around, that can be really helpful as well for everyone.
And I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think also on that note, oftentimes when you're supporting people to research, your mind can jump to the Russell Group or the top ranking universities. And I think it's important to say that we're so fortunate in the UK to have so many wonderful universities that have different strengths, different subject niche areas of expertise, and actually being open-minded in that sense. That's why visiting can be so helpful, because you can expand what you're willing to consider and really just move your young person or your student towards the best fit for them. And I think that's really where visiting in person, exploring universities together can really help you to be more open-minded.
And you, as you mentioned, coming to the UK for a little open day or to have a wander around, make it into a holiday. It'll be a nice thing. It's a lovely holiday.
Absolutely.
In the UK.
And on that note, never feel stuck. Never sort of feel like you're stuck to rigid open day dates. I think that's something that we see a lot with international visitors. We just want to encourage you that universities are open. They would love to welcome you outside of these open day dates and to make sure that you can have a first-hand experience of the campus. So if you're applying from abroad, if you're wondering how you can explore, just get in touch with universities directly. Usually the contact information is quite helpful and easy to find on the website. And people like Emily and myself, we'd be more than happy to facilitate independent visits around your holidays in the UK.
Have a lovely time. It's nice. You can go have a train ride somewhere.
Well,
exactly. Enjoy the countryside.
Hopefully when the weather's good, hey?
Weather's never good. Let's not leave people on. The weather's never good. Okay, that's fine. Just to round it off, let's say it to that middle camera there. Reminder, everybody, on 3. It's all about balance. Lovely way to end. Thank you very much. Laura, Emily,
so
good stuff. Nice to have you on the podcast. Don't forget, plenty more resources available via ucas.com UCAS.com/international. Loads more podcasts available to you as well. You can always like and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back for more soon.